Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have a special guest on the line, an icon, a legend, and a true queen. Miss Phylicia Rashad. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
I feel like you're my mom. I've been watching you for so long. I just feel like I know everything about you. I feel like your mom. Hey, Mom, I just want to say good morning, Mom.
Good morning, son. How you doing?
He too red to be yours. He too red to be yours.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Now, I hate Zoom interviews, and this is one time I really hate Zoom interviews because I would love to be in your presence.
Absolutely.
That's very kind. Well, you know what? When we can, we will.
How have you been maintaining through this whole pandemic?
Well, let's see. First of all, I've been very grateful. I've been very grateful to be in my home and to have a home to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very grateful that my family and friends are fine. I've been very grateful to be able to assist people in the ways that I've been able to do. And I've had work to do. Of course, it's different because everything is through the computer.
Mm-hmm.
I pray we will not live like this forever.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Because it ain't natural.
Mm-mm.
And it ain't good for the eyes either.
What have you learned about yourself mentally and spiritually? Anything new?
Yeah, I've learned that, you asked that question, and I'm always a little hesitant to say these things because, anyway, I'll just say it because you asked.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to find that silent space inside the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to find that space, especially now because there's so much clatter and so much chatter and so much pull to the left and then pull to the right and just being pull, if you allow it to be that way. And then the mind, it has its own way of jumping around.
Yes, it does.
So it's so important to find the silence.
How are you finding that? Because, the gyms are closed. You can't go outside like before. You can't even go get a massage.
Therapy.
You can't get your nails done. You can't get your hair done. All these things that people
do your nails yourself.
Okay.
And you can go outside and breathe. The gym was never quiet. So, you know what? If we stopped pining for the things that we think we don't have and look at what we do have and what we can do, it's a much better place to come from, I think.
Yeah.
And it allows us to create a better place.
Right.
So yeah, there are things that I do miss. I miss live theater, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do miss that. And just the other day I was thinking how privileged we've been for so long without understanding the fullness of our privilege to be able to go to a movie.
Right.
Yes.
To be able to sit in a theater or in a restaurant or to hug people or to be with people when they're making their transition from this form to the next, to be with people, to celebrate life. We didn't understand our full privilege. And maybe, if it changes, or I should say when it changes, I just don't know what it's going to change to. But we should come into a better understanding of just what the privilege of being with people is.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll be kinder to one another.
I think we all forgot what was essential. We've been using that word a lot this year, essential, but life is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing is essential. Love is essential. Like the little things.
Yeah, I agree with you. Basics, right?
Basics. Yeah.
Basics. And hasn't this time been that for us? Hasn't this time shown us what is fundamental and what is not.
How are your kids been? How have they been? Are they been around? Or they been staying away? How has that been?
Well, my son lives on the West Coast. My daughter, at the beginning of this pandemic, had just returned from Italy. She had been in Italy and she had just returned, and I was just returning from work on Empire in Chicago. Then everything shut down, and my daughter wouldn't come and see me.
Stay away from you. That's right.
She did, but what she did do when I was returning home, she had come to the house before I arrived, and she had stocked the refrigerator and the shelves. And she said, "Mommy, you don't go outside. You don't go to the store. You stay here." And she would call to make sure I was not outside. And I had to laugh at that. I said, you're monitoring me like I'm you, but I'm not you. I'm me. And when it's time, I'm going outside to go to
My
the store.
parents said the same thing. They said the same thing. They were like, no. I'm your parent. I'm going out when I want. Like,
You know, but
right.
don't think for a moment that what you did and what you said was not appreciated. Because I really appreciated the fact that my daughter did that for me.
But you went out anyway.
Oh no, not right away.
Oh, okay.
Not right away. You know, I stayed in. I stayed in, and I looked around. I said, "What are all these things in this house? Do I need all these things?" You know, everybody did that. I have a friend who said his closets and drawers were never cleaner. Just, you know, people started letting go of things that were around them that they didn't need to have. I'm still doing it. I'm still letting go of things that I don't need, and trying to let go of them in a way that they can go to people who might need them, you know.
True.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question, Queen. Have you ever had to go off on any of your real kids the way you went off on Vanessa for going to see The Wretched?
Are you kidding? Of course.
So were they your motivation when you did that episode?
Understanding what that energy is was helped. Yes, I understood that energy very well. Yes. I mean, you know, people say, oh, no, you were just a perfect mother. And I look at them and smile and say, thank you. But you know, it's easy when you're scripted and the children are scripted too. But in real life, there are no scripts.
Yeah.
And there's no handbook.
Yeah.
And it's really something. It's really something as a parent to come to that place where you understand, yes, I'm the parent, but hey, I don't know everything. And hey, that is a mind and a human being and a spirit and soul in development. And my parents gave me everything they could. And still, you know, there were things that I did that were not within the realm of that, or thought, you know, that's human nature, isn't it? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
And thank God we had parents to guide us and kind of, you know. So the thing is, you know, how to guide a person as opposed to sit on somebody telling them what to do all the time.
Right.
Yeah, that's not good parenting, actually.
You know the beauty of that Wretched episode, I've lived long enough to where I knew exactly what Vanessa's character felt like, and then I've lived long enough to know exactly what your character felt like.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because teenagers, children will sneak. I mean, it's part of being a teenager, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah.
It seems like it's scarier now, though.
Oh, come on. It's so much scarier.
It
now.
is.
And it's not young people's fault. You know, somehow a lot of things slipped through the cracks and into the cracks that should not have. You know, I think as a previous generation, there were things that we were just not looking at. You know, just not looking at. Distraction is a terrible thing. And we were very distracted. We were very, very, very distracted. And our children were being inundated with some of the worst kinds of diversions.
Mm-hmm.
And you look up and they have a language that you don't even know.
Word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look up and they know things that you didn't know they were learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah. And in this, yes, I'm listening.
And I was gonna say I have five kids, right? I have a 19,
Oh.
a 19 that's in NYU now, and I have a little 4-year-old. So I pick up the 4-year-old the other day from school, and she was like, "Dad, you know who's a liar?" And I'm like, "No, tell me, who's a liar?" She was like, "Donald Trump. He's a liar." And I'm like, "Where are you getting this from?" She heard it on the radio. She actually heard Charlamagne over there. She was listening to Daddy on the radio and heard Charlamagne say Donald Trump was a liar. And she wanted to tell me. And I'm like, these kids hear everything.
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
They do. That's why we have to be very vigilant about what we say.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And how we say it. I mean, I think that if we as adults were cognizant of the fact that every single thing we say and do creates a memory
Mm-hmm.
for our young, we might say and do differently.
Absolutely.
Because what do you really want the young person to learn? Now, here's the question. What is the most important thing for your young person to learn?
Love, caring, respect, honesty.
For oneself, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And for me, the most important thing that I wanted my children to learn was, who are you really?
Mm.
And that's an inner journey. And you don't get to go on the inner journey pointing fingers outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
wow,
we need to really, really give some time and thought to that. You know, there was a simpler time when George Washington Carver was trying to teach himself how to read in a cabin by candlelight at night. And he came upon the most amazing discoveries. And it really takes a trip to Tuskegee University to visit that museum where his work is archived, to understand all that this simple man discovered and uncovered in nature. I mean, stuff we haven't heard about. It's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think young people need to be taken out into the fields and the country and smell some air and see some cows and some goats and some chickens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I heard one time I heard that a young child thought potatoes came from McDonald's.
You mean they don't?
You know what I'm saying? Because the child was growing up in an urban area. She had never been to a farm, never seen a cow, never seen a chicken, never saw a field where potatoes were planted.
Mm-hmm.
Another disturbing thing I heard recently from two different sources who don't even know each other. Mm-hmm. They both work in the field of pediatrics. They're both pediatricians. And they're friends of mine. And one of them said that in her waiting room, she has these books for children, right? A 3-year-old child picks up the book and doesn't know how to turn the page. She tries to scan it.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Now that hurt.
But this, okay. And then somebody on the other side of the country told me the same thing.
Wow.
Because young people are being given these devices. And what do? I mean, when that, I don't like to call people by name, Charles, but when you gonna know who I'm talking about. When that man came out and said, well, we created this to take people's time and attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
Yeah, and they don't even let their own kids use that stuff.
Why not?
Because they know it's dangerous. They know it's addictive.
And they know, and they know that this becomes your source of information and your only source of information,
Right.
which means you're going to receive what somebody wants you to receive.
That's right. That's right.
I think we want our young people to think deeper than that.
Absolutely.
And I think it disconnects you from the spirit. Like I grew up in a place called Monk's Corner, South Carolina, right? So
Go ahead now.
yeah, so that's dirt roads and woods,
Yeah.
and it's
Go
just like
ahead.
you got to connect. It feel like you got a connection right to God when you walk outside. You can't do that looking at your phone, looking at them tablets all day long.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That's a very, very clear observation. Because I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I spent a lot of my time in Lobdell, Louisiana, and Chester, South Carolina. These were the birthplaces of my parents. And I know what you're saying. I know from my own experience what you're saying. And even as an actor, I have to say, it was those experiences that helped me create Lena Younger in A Raisin in the Sun. Because I understood what it means to grow something, to have I understood what that means. And though, you know, that's not something that's talked about all throughout the play, that's the main part of this human being's heart, because that's how she grew. You know, you got to understand life if you're going to portray it.
Now, I was going to say, from Houston, what made you come all the way to the East Coast to go to college, to go to HBCU, and why was it important to go to a HBCU, the second real HU? But go ahead.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to study drama, right? And I was applying to all these schools, and my father just looked at me and he let me do all that. And he said, "You're going to Howard." And I said, "Oh, but Dad, what about this one and this?" He said, "You're going to Howard." I never thought about going to a school that wasn't an HBCU. And that was because of my experience from a child. Before I started elementary school, I was in nursery school on the campus of Texas Southern University.
He's trying to play you.
That, just so you know.
He's trying to play you.
I just wanted you to see the Hampton alumni. I just wanted you to see that.
So my grandmother went to Hampton.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Vivian Elizabeth Graham. Yes, she did.
She made a great decision.
Oh, yes, she did. And my cousin, Leah Bess Moody, went to Hampton. And I love Hampton. I love Hampton. I love Howard. I love Tennessee State. I love Tuskegee. I love Grambling, Alcorn. I love Wiley. I love all these schools. See, this HBCUs was such a part of my upbringing because there were these football games, man, at the Jefferson Stadium. And the schools used to come. You know, it was like this was like your social life, interacting with colleges, interacting with these institutions. So I know the value of them and I love them. And I remember my father, who was a graduate of the Howard University School of Dentistry in 1945. I remember every year he sent money back to the school. And he said, "You're going to Howard." And then he pulled out some things for me to see where Howard University players were in Europe, sponsored by the United States, the Department of State, okay? He pulled out things for me to see about what was happening in the drama department at Howard University. And surely enough, when I went, it was the place for me to be. So now when I look back on it too, I realize in greater measure how very fortunate I am to have attended an HBCU, not only for the astute professors who were teaching there, because they were of the highest caliber. They couldn't get jobs in white institutions. They were teaching at HBCUs and they were fierce. But also for that other side of life, that social life, that socialization that helps to develop you as an adult, you know? I wouldn't trade it for nothing in this world.
Did it give you an identity, like a sense of who you truly were?
Oh, I didn't have to fight about it. You know, I had an identity before I went, but the point is I didn't have to fight about it. I didn't have pushback. I didn't have to do that, you know? And sometimes, the fight was being all of who I am, because sometimes, as African American people, we don't all have the same experience in life.
Right.
And we don't all think the same ways, And I don't feel that being African American, I don't think of it as limiting at all. I don't think of it as being separate from humanity at all. Yeah, I know better.
Mm-hmm.
I know better. And I've been privileged to be in the company of historians who have reached into world culture and the presence of Black people throughout the world in antiquity. And to have traveled to Oman, and to have traveled to India, and to have traveled to Australia, to have traveled to Brazil, to have traveled to Mexico, to have traveled places in which Black people have been present. In Switzerland, St. Moritz.
Mm-hmm.
St. Moritz was a Black man.
I had no idea.
He was. He was not only Black, he was African. Okay, let's just talk about it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, open up and realize it's not just the transatlantic slave trade. That's not the son and bun of our history as people.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. Unfortunately, it's part of our history in this country. But as people, our history is much, much broader than that.
Queen,
much broader.
I agree. Did you ever lose yourself playing such a iconic role as Claire Huxtable? Meaning that, did you ever forget who you were?
No.
Okay.
No, that wasn't possible, because every day I came home to my family. And
they ain't want to hear none of that Claire Huxtable stuff when you walk in the house.
Well, it's like, no, it's like, okay, so my best friend from college came to see a taping, and she said, Phylicia, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, taking those people's money for being yourself. That's what she said. And at home, when I say this, people imagine, I always imagine what my life was like.
Mm-hmm.
Child, they had no idea. I would come home and cook and prepare dinner.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. From fresh produce, no canned anything, because I want my family to eat healthily. Some things you can get in a can, but most things, vegetables and stuff, have to be fresh. And I would do that every day. And in the early years of the show, let's say certainly in the third year, I had my baby with me. I was a nursing mother. I took Condola to the studio with me every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And, and I came home with her at night, and I was with my family. I wasn't out clubbing. I wasn't doing stuff like that. I didn't have time for that. And then, there was school, and then there was homework. Her brother's 13 years older than she was, and he was in the 8th grade when she was born. And there I was. It's like, you got to hit it every day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you work in a television, that homework assignment's got to be turned in.
That's right.
So she was
and
born.
Breakfast has to be put on the table. You don't send your child off to school hungry. If you're fortunate enough to have food, you prepare it. That's just the way I grew up, like that. So I was, living like that.
So your daughter was born to be an actress. She grew up in it. She was all around it. She lived it. So she was born to be an actress.
You know what she did? She grew up around the work, and she saw what the work was. From infancy, yes. And when she was older and I began working in theater again, I would take her with me, and she would help me learn my lines when she learned how to read. But she was always there watching the work, and she loved the work.
Right.
And that's how she approaches it. Her work ethic is incredible.
Speaking of the work, I think you got Black Box coming out on the 6th, right?
Yeah, on the 6th. Yep. By this month.
You've held the name of America's mother for so years. Are you intentionally accepting roles in movies like A Fall from Grace and Black Box to kind of shift that image of you, I guess?
The villain.
That was an evil laugh.
Right, wasn't it?
Wow.
Whoa.
Wait a minute. Let's explore that concept for just a moment.
Okay.
Evil? See, one of the things we learn in acting is not to judge our characters.
Mm-hmm.
You have to always understand what a person is thinking and why the person's thinking it. In my freshman year, one of my instructors said to me, I was having a fit about something someone had done. And he let me carry on. And then when I calmed down, he said, Miss Allen, there's something I want you to remember. Even when somebody's being, and I'll say this, an SOB, they think they're right.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about the times you've seen somebody act a complete idiot and they think they're right.
Yeah, I call that, I got a curse. I call that dickhead momentum.
Yeah, but they think they're right.
Yeah. And it just keeps building and building and building and building and building.
They think they're right. So as an actor, that's my job, is to get inside what their thought is, you know. So I'm not trying to depart from anything. There are all kinds, and it's interesting because they're all mothers, aren't they? Diana Dubois was a mother, right? Right. And Sarah in A Fall from Grace was what? A mother. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of women in this world and all kinds of mothers too.
You sound like you about to play the villain in the next Black Panther movie,
right?
With that laugh.
Jeez.
Do you ever feel like certain roles are beneath you?
I wouldn't say beneath me. I would just say they don't resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm presented with things on a number of occasions that just don't resonate with me. I don't like, it's like maybe the quality, maybe the writing doesn't resonate with me, or maybe the intention of the writer doesn't resonate with me. I don't like to be critical of other people's work because that's the easiest thing to be. I just try to find what resonates with me. So what resonates with me? A good story that's told well resonates with me. What resonates with me is a window of opportunity to explore creativity in a new way. That really resonates with me.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm after.
You know, Black Box poses the question, do we run our minds or do our minds run us?
Isn't that true?
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, well, what do you think?
Do we run our minds or do our minds run us? I think our minds run us, but
I agree.
We have the ability to get ourselves back on the proper course. Because I think we live in this world where there's so much noise that if you pay too much attention to the noise, people can start telling you how you're supposed to be. But that's not necessarily you. So you can silence that noise and really tap into your mind and figure out the path you're supposed to be on, not the path people want you to be on.
Right. That's why you asked me what I had learned about my mind. And that's why I said it was important to find the silence within my mind. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that most oftentimes we people are run by our minds, and the mind often runs amok. And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, it's fine too, right? Because healing looks different for healing is strange like that. Like one moment you're fine, the next minute you bugging out. And I think that's okay. It's all a process.
It is, but do we want to keep just going through that like that?
No.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And you just brought up something that's really very interesting. You said 1 minute you're fine and the next minute you're bugging out. That brings to my mind imagery of a pendulum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We want to bring that thing to center, right? Because it will swing as far to the left as it does to the right, unless it's brought center. Yeah.
Now you mentored Chadwick Boseman when he was in Howard.
Mm.
How did the loss of him impact you? And for people that don't know him personally, tell us something that we might not know about him. He's been up here a couple of times, and he's donated money to the causes that we were fighting for at the time.
He's from South Carolina like me.
He's always been a good brother. So tell us how that impact was.
Well, you want to know something about him that you might not know?
Yeah.
Chadwick was given to study. He loved to study. He studied through the lens of theater, first as a writer. So he was always interested in language and what it does, and how to arrange it in such a way as to move people inside themselves. He studied the meanings of words. I mean, he studied. He would go into the etymology of words, take it through ancient times. And you can see this kind of thoughtfulness in his work. If you look at the body of film work that we have, every character is different. The walk is different. The rhythm of speech is different. The carriage is different. The gaze will be different. It's so subtle you don't notice it at first, but you go back and you look at it again. He was a consummate artist, and without question, one of the kindest and bravest people I've ever known.
Rest in peace to Chadwick.
Yeah, definitely rest in
peace.
No,
I wanted to ask you about the Drake video. When Drake called you to be in that video, did you even know who he was?
Of course I knew. Where do you think I live? Under a rock? Of course I knew he was. I knew who he was. And I sort of, I hadn't been able to give answer to the inquiry. When I talked to my daughter, she said, "Oh, you have to do it. Oh, Mama, you've got to do it." I said, okay. No, Mama, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I had so much fun. It's just so much fun.
That can't be the first time you've been asked to be in a rap video, though, right?
Yes, it was.
Really? What?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's insane.
Wow.
As popular as you've been for all these years?
You know, things come when they should and don't when they shouldn't.
There you go. Wow.
How do you think Black Hollywood has evolved over the years since you first came in?
It well, let's see. There was always there were Black people in positions that we weren't always conscious of, but not maybe so many. And now you see Black people on many different levels, in many different areas, in many different positions. There are people making decisions to green light projects. There are producers. There are camera operators. There are directors of photography. There are wardrobe supervisors, makeup supervisors, hairstylists. I'm talking industry now. You know what I'm talking, right? There's one thing for what you see on the screen, but you wouldn't see what's on that screen if it weren't for the work of the people who are not on that screen. And they are fundamental and essential to what it is we see. So changes, yes, and there need to be more changes, and there are going to be more changes. We need a total equity in this nation of ours that includes all people.
Mm-hmm.
In my career, I have worked with only one Native American actor. That'll make sense to me. I have worked with only one Asian American actor. That doesn't make sense to me. There's just there's more for us to do in the field of inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
There's more for us to embrace. And I look forward to us doing that, because I think that as a people, we are more than ready for it now. You know, one of the most heartening days in my life was the day when people around the world came out and stood together for the cause of decency and justice. When Maori Indians took to the streets in New Zealand and performed their rituals. When people in Italy, in Germany, in France, in England, when people came out to stand for Mr. Floyd, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know him, but this was around the world, this happened. And there was no leader, there was no lead organization.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the human heart said, now is the time.
That's right.
That's a powerful thing.
That's right.
That's a very powerful thing. And you know, people don't talk much about that. But look at that power.
That's right.
No, I'm just saying it was so interesting what you were describing, because I look back on all of those shows that I grew up on in the 90s. And man, it just seemed like they were so brilliantly black. And I learned so much from them, whether it was Cosby, Different World, Living Single. I mean, even Martin, like all of those shows like that. And I'm like, what did those sets look like? Because they were so black that you would think that everybody on the set was black. All the writers, the directors, the people behind the camera. Was it not like that?
No.
Wow.
No, it was not.
Wow.
No, it was not. There were black people behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
There were black people in the writer's room. But everybody was not black. No. But everybody was on board to deliver an excellent program. Mm-hmm. And that's what matters. Because all black people don't think alike.
That's right. That's right.
You know, what matters is that everybody's on board. And there were interns who were being hired every year. And a number of them were black and some of them were not. Our stage managers were black. Mm-hmm. And they were young people. And Mr. Cosby wanted that. So we had that. And they were good. They were sharp.
Young people to keep it fresh, keep it new.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a way of including, and this is what I loved most about those years. There was a way of including people of different ethnicities. You see it reflected in Rudy's friends. Mm-hmm. You see her little friends. Mm-hmm. You see that, okay? Mm-hmm. There was a way of including people of ethnicities and generations that was just a marvel to be a part of.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they did that
Nobody
with
They did that nobody was too old, nobody was too young,
right.
you know. And he was not going to have grandparents insulted and made fun of the way some shows do, make fun of people for being older. He said, no. He said, no, we're not doing that. Our young people show respect And it's not a forced thing, it's inherent.
That's right.
And he insisted on that. He insisted on a lot of great things.
Even when they introduced hip hop and they brought in Erica Alexander, and it wasn't like she was just some ghetto, ratchet young lady, you know, she was just a person whose circumstances didn't deal her the best cards, and she wanted a better life.
Right.
Yeah. And he understood that. He understood that by virtue of the way he grew. He didn't grow up in a Huxtable house, I mean, in terms of economics, but in terms of love, he did. His mother was very loving and very attentive. Yeah.
You still speak to the other cast members? Because watching it seems like you guys will be on the phone with each other all day long. You don't think it's a job. Do you still speak to those other cast members at all?
Every now and then I will hear from Malcolm and Keisha. Every now and then. Malcolm's a parent, Keisha's a parent, and they have beautiful children and they love them. And I told Malcolm he's a finished item. He has a daughter and he can't give enough love. He's finished.
He's finished.
And you're done, brother. You're done.
Does it upset you that people don't want to air the episodes of the Cosby Show?
Oh no, it doesn't upset me. People still watch. People find ways to watch, you know. I won't be upset by things because things change.
Right.
I won't be upset. And I won't be upset by things people do because people change. We see that. It's something to see and to understand. Years ago, someone who loves me very much told me, forget about your image. Try to find out who you really are.
Oof.
She said to me, an image can be broken. Try to find out who you really are.
Wow. That's tough to do in this business. It's not tough to do, but it can be a process just because everybody's always trying to tell us what our image should be. And when you open up a magazine or you read a blog and people have a perception of you like, oh, that's what they like? Let me give them more of that. So you become a caricature of yourself and things become performative without you even knowing it.
That's a very interesting observation. It's what happens in interviews. That isn't happening in this one, and I'm loving it. You know, when people interview you, sometimes they come with their answers already in their heads to the questions they've decided to ask you.
Right.
And so you wonder why, well, what are we doing here? Why? Okay. what is this? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why have a conversation with me if you already think you know?
Correct.
Yeah, you know, okay. So that lets me know one thing, if nothing else. You will leave this conversation thinking of the person that I'm speaking to. That person will leave the conversation knowing only what they thought they knew before the conversation began.
Absolutely. I love your artwork in the back too. I see James Baldwin. Is that David Rustin?
No, that's
Who's
James
that?
Baldwin.
No, I know that's Baldwin, but who's that by him?
You mean down at the bottom?
Yeah, the bottom. Yeah, that's all Baldwin.
You mean
this one? Yeah.
Well, those are all aspects of those are different moods of James Baldwin.
Got you. Okay. Yeah,
That was from a Houston artist, Joseph Mack, who was an arts professor at Prairie View A&M. And he was one of my mother's dear friends. And this came to me.
Oh, okay. So so this of course he means something to you, but
Yes, he does.
Okay. So you study a lot of his work?
I've been privileged to read his work. Yes, a very brilliant mind. And have you ever seen tapes of him speaking?
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I thought that was him and Bayard Rustin. That's what I
thought.
Oh,
yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, that's all him.
Okay.
It's all James Baldwin. Yeah, I like his works a lot. His mind was
brilliant.
Brilliant mind. And his pace was quick. He was so animated in his speech, you know. He didn't move around a lot, but the way he talked and his rhythm, it was like a typewriter. I said, oh, brother, you too many things for me. I really enjoyed him.
Well, we enjoy you, Queen Rashad, and we could sit here and talk to you forever.
And we appreciate you for checking in. We're so grateful and thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And please, when you are in New York, please stop by the studio.
Absolutely.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, we have the rose petals on the ground for you to walk on. We have all that for you. Tea, coffee, whatever it is you need.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Queen.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Thank you.
Peace,
Have the
Queen.
best day.